I should have just driven away. Have you ever made a choice that terrified you, but you knew in your bones it was the right thing to do? The kind of moment where running would be easier, but staying defines who you really are. That's where Ava Collins found herself on a rain-soaked Thursday night, staring at the scratch she'd just carved into the most expensive car she'd ever seen. Rain hammered the pharmacy parking lot like 1,000 tiny accusations. Ava sat frozen behind the wheel of her 15-year-old Honda, watching water stream down the windshield. Her shift at Morrison's supermarket had run 2 hours over. A spilled display of canned goods, then a register malfunction, then Mrs. Patterson insisting on paying with exact change she didn't quite have. Ava's feet ached, her eyes burned. The smell of industrial floor cleaner still clung to her uniform. Her second job at the bakery started in 6 hours. Between them lay only this, a sliver of time to sleep, to breathe, to pretend she wasn't drowning in late rent notices and her father's old medical bills. She needed to park. The spot in front of the pharmacy was tight, but it was the only one left. Just squeeze in. You've done this before. She turned the wheel, eased forward. The Honda's front bumper cleared the sedan on the left. Almost there. Almost. Clop. The sound cut through the rain like a gunshot. Ava's hands flew off the wheel. Her heart lurched into her throat. She twisted in her seat, peering through the rear window at the vehicle behind her. A black SUV that gleamed even in the storm, sleek and expensive, and utterly out of place in this neighborhood. A long, deep scratch ran across its side panel. No, 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 no. Ava's breath came shallow. She glanced around the empty lot. No witnesses, no security cameras she could see. The pharmacy was closed. The streetlights barely reached this corner. She could leave right now, drive away and never look back. Her mother's voice surfaced from memory, soft but unyielding. Never lie to avoid responsibility, Ava. The truth always costs less than the cover-up. Ava closed her eyes. Her hands shook as she reached for her purse, fumbling for the small notepad she kept for grocery lists. The pen barely worked, skipping across the damp paper as she scrawled in crooked, panicked handwriting, "I'm sorry. My name is Ava Collins. If you want, I'll try to pay for the repair. 5555-00147. She read it twice. It looked desperate. It was desperate, but it was honest. Ava climbed out into the rain, her thin jacket soaking through immediately. She clipped the note under the SUV's wiper blade, her fingers trembling so badly she nearly dropped it twice. Then she ran, not quite running, but close, back to her car, slid inside, and drove away like she was fleeing a crime scene. Because in a way, she was. What Ava didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that the owner of that black SUV had just left a very different kind of meeting. The kind where powerful men speak in low voices and shake hands over things the law will never touch. And when Damian Rourke returned 30 minutes later to find that note fluttering in the wind, he didn't feel anger. He felt curiosity. 3 black sedans rolled into the pharmacy lot in perfect synchronization, their headlights cutting through the rain like searchlights. Damian Rourke stepped out of the center vehicle before it fully stopped. He wore a black shirt beneath a long wool coat, the collar open despite the cold. Water darkened his shoulders within seconds, but he didn't reach for the umbrella Eli Ward held out. He just stood there, studying the scratch on his SUV. with the kind of stillness that made people nervous. Eli waited. He'd learned years ago not to rush Damien's silences. They always meant something. Finally, Damien moved, not toward the damage, but toward the windshield. He plucked the damp note from beneath the wiper blade and held it up to the light. The paper was cheap, torn from a spiral notebook. The ink had blurred where rain had touched it, but the handwriting remained clear enough to read. Shaky, hurried, honest. "I'm sorry, my name is Ava Collins. If you want, I'll try to pay for the repair." Damien's thumb traced the smudged letters. "She could have left," he said quietly. Eli stepped closer, rain pattering against his umbrella. Most people would have, but she didn't. Damien folded the note carefully, slipping it into his coat pocket. She was terrified. Look at the handwriting. But she stayed long enough to write this. "You want me to pull traffic cameras, run the plates?" "No." Eli raised an eyebrow. In their world, information was currency. You didn't leave stones unturned. "No." Damien's gaze drifted toward the darkened pharmacy, then out to the empty street beyond. His expression remained unreadable, but something in his posture had shifted, something almost intrigued. "I know where she works," he said. "The phone number. Area code matches the neighborhood. She's local, probably hourly wage." He paused, turning the note over in his mind like a puzzle piece that didn't fit the usual picture. "She wrote her real name, left her actual number. She has no idea who I am." "That makes her dangerous," Eli said carefully. "Or rare." The word hung between them, strange and weighted. Eli knew better than to argue. He'd seen Damien dismantle men for far less than property damage. But he'd also seen him spare people who showed something unexpected, a flash of courage, a moment of truth. Damien Rourke lived in a world built on lies and leverage. Occasionally, honesty disarmed him more than any weapon could. "What do you want to do?" Eli asked. Damien looked down at the note again, at the crooked letters, at the desperate apology, at the name Ava Collins, written in a hand that couldn't afford the repair but offered it anyway. "I want to meet her," Damien said. Ava had almost convinced herself it was over. 2 days had passed since the parking lot. No calls, no angry voicemails, no police knocking on her door. Maybe the owner hadn't even noticed the scratch. Maybe they'd seen the note and decided it wasn't worth the trouble. Maybe you got lucky. She wanted to believe it. She needed to believe it. The morning shift at Riverside Bakery was quiet. The kind of slow Tuesday where the espresso machine hummed louder than the customers. Ava worked the counter alone, wiping down the pastry case and refilling napkin dispensers. Her mind already drifting toward the nap she'd steal before her evening shift. The door chimed. Ava glanced up, smile automatic. "Good morning, welcome to—" The words died. 3 men entered. The one in front moved with the kind of fluid certainty that made the air feel heavier. He wore dark slacks and a charcoal sweater that probably cost more than Ava's rent. His face was all sharp angles, strong jaw, straight nose, eyes the color of storm clouds that swept the room once before landing on her. The bakery fell silent. Mrs. Chen, who'd been reading the newspaper at the corner table, suddenly found her crossword fascinating. The college student with the laptop closed the screen. Even the espresso machine seemed to quiet. Ava's pulse kicked into overdrive. The man walked directly to the counter. He reached into his coat pocket, slow, deliberate, and placed a damp, wrinkled piece of paper on the glass between them. Ava's handwriting stared back at her. "I'm sorry. My name is Ava Collins." "Oh, God," she whispered. "Ava Collins." His voice was low, controlled, the kind of calm that felt more dangerous than shouting. "That's you?" It wasn't a question. Ava's hands trembled as she set down the cloth she'd been holding. Yes, I'm so sorry. I didn't see your car until it was too late. And I know I should have waited, but I panicked, and I swear I'll pay for the repair. I just need time, maybe installments. I don't want money." Ava stopped mid-sentence. "What?" "The man, Damien, his name is Damien Rourke," some instinct whispered, tilted his head slightly, studying her with the intensity of someone used to reading people down to their bones. "The repair costs $3,200, he said. "Can you pay that?" Ava's stomach dropped. $3,000. She barely had 300 in savings. No, not all at once, but I can work something out. I don't want your money," Damien repeated, quieter this time. "I want your time." Ava blinked. "My time?" "You'll work as my assistant, temporarily, answer phones, organize schedules, accompany me to meetings." He spoke as if offering a business transaction, nothing more. 8 weeks after that, we're even." "Assistant?" Ava's voice cracked slightly. I'm not qualified for." "You're qualified enough to take responsibility for your mistakes." Damien's gaze didn't waver. "That's more than most people manage." Behind him, one of his men, tall, composed, watching everything, shifted his weight slightly. A silent reminder that this wasn't really a negotiation. Ava's throat felt dry. She glanced toward the back room, where her manager was probably doing inventory, oblivious to the fact that her barista was currently being recruited by a man who radiated authority and danger in equal measure. "What if I say no?" she asked, hating how small her voice sounded. Damien considered this. For a moment, something almost like respect flickered across his features. "Then you say no. I'm not here to threaten you, Ava, but the offer stands. 8 weeks, your time for my car." Your time for my car. It sounded reasonable, logical even. So why did it feel like she was signing something far more binding than a work contract? Ava looked down at the note on the counter, at her own crooked handwriting, at the honesty that had brought this man to her door. Her mother's voice echoed again. "The truth always costs less than the cover-up." "When do I start?" Ava heard herself say. Damien's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes softened, just barely, just enough to notice. "Tomorrow, 9 a.m., Rourke Group Tower, 40th floor." He reached into his pocket again and placed a business card beside the note. Black cardstock, silver lettering, no title, just a name and an address. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Ava." He glanced back over his shoulder. "You did the right thing, writing that note." And then he was gone, the door chiming softly behind him, leaving Ava alone with a business card and the growing realization that her life had just changed in ways she couldn't begin to understand. Mrs. Chen looked up from her crossword. "Honey, do you know who that was?" Ava shook her head, still staring at the card. "That, Mrs. Chen said carefully, was Damien Rourke. And if even half the rumors are true, you just made a deal with the most dangerous man in the city." The Rourke Group Tower stood like a steel and glass monument in the financial district, its 40 floors gleaming in the morning light. Ava stood on the sidewalk, clutching her purse and trying not to feel completely out of place. You can do this. 8 weeks. Just 8 weeks. The lobby was all polished marble and soft lighting, the kind of space where even footsteps sounded expensive. A receptionist with perfect hair and a practiced smile directed Ava to the executive elevators. 40th floor, the woman said. Mr. Tunder, Rourke is expecting you. The elevator ride felt like ascending into another world. Each floor that passed took Ava further from everything familiar. From the bakery's flour-dusted counters, from her apartment's creaking pipes, from the life she understood. The doors opened directly into Damien's office, not a hallway, not a waiting room. The elevator opened, and there he was, standing by floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the entire city, phone to his ear, speaking in low-clipped sentences that ended with, "Handle it," and nothing more. He glanced at Ava, held up one finger. Wait. Ava stepped out onto hardwood floors that gleamed like dark water. The office was massive but minimalist. A black desk, 2 leather chairs, a bookshelf lined with legal volumes, and what looked like first editions. No photographs, no personal touches, just clean lines and controlled space. Damien ended the call. "You're on time," he said, setting the phone down. "That's good." "I'm usually early," Ava replied, then immediately wondered if that sounded too eager. "Eli will show you your desk. You'll screen my calls, manage my calendar, and prepare briefs for meetings. Nothing complicated." Damien moved toward the desk, his movements efficient and unhurried. "You'll also accompany me to certain events, dinners, charity functions, places where I need someone presentable at my side." Ava's cheeks warmed. "Presentable? You look nervous," Damien observed, not unkindly. "Don't be. I won't eat you." That's reassuring. Something that might have been amusement touched the corner of his mouth. "The job is straightforward, Ava. Follow instructions. Be honest. Don't repeat what you hear in this office." He paused, his gaze sharpening slightly. "Can you manage that?" Ava nodded. "Yes." "Good." Damien pressed a button on his desk. "Eli, come in." The tall man from the bakery entered through a side door Ava hadn't noticed. Up close, he looked younger than she'd thought. Maybe early 30s, with calm eyes and the stillness of someone who missed nothing. "Eli Ward," Damien said. "My right hand. He'll get you oriented." Eli nodded to Ava. "This way." Her desk sat in an alcove just outside Damien's office, close enough to hear when he called, far enough to feel like her own small territory. A computer, a phone, a leather-bound planner already filled with color-coded appointments. "He's particular about his schedule," Eli explained, pulling up the calendar software. "Meetings run on time, no exceptions. If someone tries to add an appointment without going through you, the answer is no." Ava scanned the screen, every hour blocked out in 15-minute increments. Breakfast meetings, conference calls, site visits. The words private appeared frequently with no further detail. "What do I do if someone asks about the private appointments?" "You say Mr. Rourke isn't available." Eli's voice remained even. "Nothing more." "Right." Ava swallowed. "And the events he mentioned?" "You'll receive wardrobe guidance in advance. The car will pick you up. Stay close to Mr. Rourke. Smile politely. Don't answer questions about his business." Eli met her eyes directly. "And if anyone makes you uncomfortable, you tell me immediately." "Understood." There was something protective in the way he said it. Something that suggested this wasn't just about professionalism. "Understood," Ava said quietly. The first week passed in a blur of phone calls and scheduling, and trying not to spill coffee on documents that probably cost more than her car. Damien was exacting but not cruel. When Ava made mistakes, and she made several, he simply corrected her and moved on. "The Riverside file, not Riverstone," he'd say, voice patient. "I'm sorry, just bring me the right one." No yelling, no condescension, just clarity. It unsettled her more than anger would have. By Friday, Ava had started to notice patterns. Damien drank his coffee black, always at 7:30. He took calls from someone named Marcus every day at noon, conversations that never lasted more than 3 minutes. When he was thinking, he'd stand at the windows with his hands in his pockets, absolutely still, and sometimes, just sometimes, when Ava glanced up from her desk, she'd find him watching her with an expression she couldn't quite name. Curiosity, maybe, or something quieter, something that made her pulse quicken in a way that had nothing to do with fear. The first event was a charity gala at the Harborview Grand. The dress arrived at Ava's apartment 2 hours beforehand, midnight blue silk, simple and elegant, with a note in Eli's handwriting, shoes included. Car arrives at 7. Ava stood in front of her bathroom mirror, barely recognizing herself. The dress fit perfectly. The shoes didn't pinch. Even her hair cooperated, falling in soft waves she'd managed with a curling iron borrowed from her neighbor. "You look like you belong there." Except she didn't, and everyone would know it. The car, a sleek town car, not the black SUV, arrived exactly at 7. Eli held the door. "You look nice," he said simply. "I look terrified." That too, but he smiled slightly. "Just stay close to Mr. Rourke. He'll handle the rest." The Harborview Grand Ballroom glittered like something from a film. Crystal chandeliers, champagne towers, women in gowns that cost more than Ava's yearly rent. She felt every eye turn as she entered on Damien's arm. He wore a black tuxedo that made him look even more imposing than usual. But his hand at the small of her back was steady, grounding. "Breathe," he murmured. "You're doing fine." "I don't know anyone here." "Neither do half these people. They're just better at pretending." Ava almost laughed. They moved through the crowd, Damien greeting guests with the practiced ease of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. Handshakes, brief conversations. Ava stood slightly behind him, smiling when smiled at, saying nothing, until a woman in crimson silk approached, her gaze raking over Ava with barely concealed curiosity. "Damien," she purred, "who's your lovely companion?" "Ava Collins," Damien said smoothly. "My assistant." "Assistant?" The woman's smile sharpened. "How practical." Ava felt heat rise in her cheeks, but before she could respond, Damien's hand tightened almost imperceptibly at her back. A silent message: "Ignore her." "If you'll excuse us," Damien said, his tone polite but final, and guided Ava away. They stopped near the terrace doors, where the noise dimmed slightly. "I'm sorry," Ava said quietly. "I don't know how to—" "You're doing exactly what you need to do," Damien interrupted. His eyes met hers, and for the first time she saw something in them that looked almost like approval. "You're honest. That's more valuable than any amount of charm." Ava's breath caught. "You really believe that?" "I wouldn't have brought you here if I didn't." The moment stretched, fragile and electric. Ava became suddenly aware of how close they stood, of the warmth of his hand still at her back, of the way his gaze held hers without wavering. Then Eli appeared at Damien's shoulder, his expression carefully neutral but urgent. "We have a situation," Eli said quietly. Damien's entire demeanor shifted, from something almost soft to completely focused. He glanced at Ava. "Stay with Eli. I'll be back." "What's wrong?" "Just business." He was already moving away, his phone already at his ear. "Eli, don't let her out of your sight." And just like that, the warmth was gone, replaced by the reminder that Damien Rourke lived in a world Ava didn't understand. A world where situations required immediate attention and assistance needed protection. Have you ever stepped into a world that wasn't meant for you, only to realize you couldn't leave? If this story is pulling you in, subscribe and turn on notifications, because Ava's journey is only beginning and the stakes are about to rise. The second week, Ava began to see the edges of Damien's real world. It started small, calls that made his jaw tighten, meetings behind closed doors where raised voices leaked through. Eli's presence became more constant, more watchful, and then there was the man who appeared outside the Rourke Tower on a Thursday afternoon. Ava had just left for lunch, still adjusting the strap of her purse, when a black car pulled up to the curb. Not one of Damien's, she knew his vehicles by now. This one was different, sleeker, foreign plates. The back door opened. A man stepped out, and Ava's instincts screamed wrong before she even knew why. He was younger than Damien, maybe late 20s, with sharp features and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. His suit was expensive. His posture was relaxed. Everything about him said dangerous in a way that was somehow worse than Damien's controlled intensity. Ava Collins. He said her name like he'd been waiting to use it. "You're even prettier than the photos suggested." Ava stopped walking. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" "Not yet." He extended a hand. "Declan Hayes, I'm a business associate of Damien's." Ava didn't take the hand. Something about the way he said associate made it clear that wasn't the right word at all. Declan's smile widened. "Smart girl, you have good instincts." He lowered his hand, unbothered. "I just wanted to introduce myself. In our line of work, it's important to know who matters to whom." "I'm just his assistant." "Of course you are." Declan's gaze swept over her, assessing. "And I'm just a concerned colleague. But let me give you some friendly advice, Ava. In this world, the people Damien Rourke cares about become complicated." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't you?" Declan stepped closer, and Ava fought the urge to back away. "You're wearing a dress that costs 3 months of your salary. You arrived at a charity gala on his arm. You have security following you." He tilted his head toward a spot across the street, where Ava suddenly noticed a man in a dark jacket watching them, one of Eli's people. "You think that's normal for an assistant?" Ava's heart hammered. "I should go." In a moment. Declan's voice remained light, conversational, but something underneath it made her skin crawl. "I just want you to understand something. Damien's world isn't safe, Ava, and when you're close to him, really close, you become a target, not because you did anything wrong, just because you matter." "I don't—" "You do." Declan's smile faded slightly, replaced by something harder. "And that makes you valuable, to him, to his enemies, to people like me who understand that power isn't just about territory or money, it's about leverage." Before Ava could respond, a voice cut through the air, sharp and commanding. "Step away from her." Eli appeared from nowhere, positioning himself between Ava and Declan with the fluid grace of someone trained for exactly this moment. 2 more men materialized behind him. Declan raised his hands in mock surrender, smile returning. "Easy, Eli, just having a conversation." "The conversation's over." Eli's voice was ice. "For now." Declan's gaze found Ava again over Eli's shoulder. "Think about what I said, Ava, and remember, in this world, anything the boss cares about becomes a weapon someone else can use." He slid back into his car and drove away, leaving Ava standing on the sidewalk with her heart racing and Eli's protective presence the only thing keeping her grounded. "Are you hurt?" Eli asked, turning to her. "No, just who was that?" "Someone you should never speak to again." Eli's jaw was tight. "Come on, we need to get you back inside." Damien was waiting in his office when Eli escorted Ava back. One look at her face, and his expression darkened. "What happened?" Declan approached her outside the building, Eli reported, introduced himself, made threats disguised as advice. Damien's hands curled into fists on his desk. For a moment, Ava saw something crack through his controlled exterior. Something raw and furious. "What did he say to you?" Damien asked, his voice too quiet. "He said," Ava swallowed. "He said people you care about become targets." Damien closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, the fury was banked but still simmering. "He's trying to scare you, that's all." "Is he right?" The question hung in the air. Damien didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stood and crossed to the windows, his back to her, hands sliding into his pockets. "Yes," he finally said, "he's right." Ava's stomach dropped. "Then why did you bring me into this, if it's so dangerous?" "Because I didn't think—" Damien stopped himself, jaw clenching. "I thought I could control the variables, keep you safe. I didn't expect Declan to move this quickly." "Who is he?" "A rival." The word came out harsh. "We have competing interests, territorial disputes. He sees you as leverage." "Because I'm your assistant?" Damien turned, and the look in his eyes made Ava's breath catch. It wasn't the look of a boss concerned about an employee. It was something deeper, something that made her suddenly understand why Declan had smiled when he said "you matter." "Because you're more than that," Damien said quietly, "and he knows it." The confession hung between them, heavy and undeniable. Ava's pulse raced. "I should quit if I'm putting you in danger." "No." Damien crossed the distance between them in 3 strides. He stopped just short of touching her, his presence overwhelming. "You're not putting me in danger. This is my world, Ava, my responsibility, and I won't let Declan or anyone use you to get to me." "How can you promise that?" "Because I don't make promises I can't keep." His voice softened just slightly. "But I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" Ava looked up at him, at this man who'd entered her life because of a dented car and a handwritten note, who'd offered her a job instead of a bill, who stood now like a wall between her and whatever darkness Declan Hayes represented. Should she trust him? Probably not. He was a mafia boss. Even if he never said the word, she understood it now. He lived in a world of violence and power and secrets, but when she looked into his eyes, she didn't see cruelty. She saw something fierce and protective and unexpectedly honest. "Yes," Ava whispered. "I trust you." Damien's expression shifted, relief mixed with something that looked almost like pain. "Then let me keep you safe, please." It was the please that undid her, the vulnerability hidden in that single word. "Okay," Ava said. "What do I need to do?" "Stay close. Don't go anywhere alone. If Declan or anyone approaches you again, you call me immediately." Damien pulled out his phone and pressed it into her hand. "My personal number, not the office line, just you and me." Ava stared at the phone, at the intimacy of that gesture. "Damien, I know this isn't what you signed up for," he said quietly. "I know you're scared, but I won't let anything happen to you. That's a promise." And despite everything, despite the danger, despite the impossibility of it all, Ava believed him. The days after Declan's warning became a careful dance of proximity and protection. Ava no longer left the building without security. Eli or one of his team shadowed her everywhere. To the bakery for her remaining shifts, to her apartment at night, back to the tower each morning. It should have felt suffocating. Instead, it felt like being wrapped in armor she never knew she needed. But it also felt like a cage. "I can't live like this," Ava said one afternoon, standing in Damien's office with her arms crossed. 3 weeks had passed since Declan's appearance. 3 weeks of constant surveillance and limited freedom. "I'm not your prisoner." Damien looked up from the contract he'd been reviewing. "I'm keeping you alive." "You're keeping me locked up." "There's a difference." His voice remained calm, but something underneath it suggested he'd been expecting this argument. "Declan hasn't made another move yet. That means he's planning something until I know what." "What? You'll keep me here forever? I have a life, Damien. Or I did before." "Before what?" He stood now, rounding the desk. "Before you left a note on my car? Before you agreed to work for me? Or before Declan Hayes decided you were valuable?" Ava flinched. "That's not fair." "None of this is fair." Damien's control was fraying, just slightly. "You think I want you trapped here? You think this is how I imagined?" He stopped himself, jaw tight. "How you imagined what?" He didn't answer. The silence stretched, heavy with things neither of them could say. Ava softened her voice. "I'm grateful for the protection. I am. But you can't expect me to hide indefinitely. I need air. I need space. I need to feel like myself. Yourself gets you killed in my world. Then maybe I shouldn't be in your world." The words came out sharper than Ava intended, but she didn't take them back, because somewhere beneath the gratitude and the growing feelings she was trying very hard not to name, there was anger. Anger at being pulled into something she never asked for. Anger at feeling like a possession instead of a person. Damien's expression went carefully blank. "Is that what you want? To leave?" "I want," Ava's throat tightened. "I want to make my own choices, even the dangerous ones." "That's not how it works." "Why not?" "Because Damien stopped again, the words catching. When he finally spoke, his voice was quieter, almost raw. "Because I can't protect you if you won't let me." There it was, the heart of it. Not control, not possession, fear. Ava's anger wavered. "I'm not asking you to stop protecting me. I'm asking you to trust that I can handle more than you think." "I do trust you." Damien's gaze held hers, intense and unguarded. "That's the problem. I trust you too much. And in this world, trust is a weakness people like Declan exploit." "So what? We just stay trapped here? Forever afraid?" "Until I find a way to end this, yes. And if you can't?" Damien's silence was answer enough. Ava turned toward the windows, blinking back unexpected tears. The city sprawled below, so close, so unreachable. "I can't live like this," she repeated, quieter now. I'm not built for cages." "I know." Damien's voice came from just behind her, close but not touching. "I know, and I'm sorry, but I need you to understand. Losing you isn't an option I can accept." The confession hung in the air, raw and undeniable. Ava closed her eyes. "Don't fall for him. Don't. He's dangerous and complicated and living in a world that will never be safe." But her heart wasn't listening. "I need to go," she said suddenly, pulling away. "I need to clear my head. Ava, alone, Damien, just for an hour, please." She saw him war with it, the need to keep her close versus the understanding that she was breaking. Finally, reluctantly, he nodded. "Eli goes with you, non-negotiable." "Fine." Ava grabbed her jacket from the chair. "But he stays in the car." She left before Damien could argue, before the tears threatening behind her eyes could fall, before she could admit that the cage wasn't the building. It was the way she felt about the man inside it. Ava stood under a streetlight 3 blocks from the tower, breathing in the cool evening air. Eli had parked across the street, watching but giving her space as promised. The city hummed around her. Traffic, distant conversations, the ordinary sounds of a world that felt suddenly foreign. What am I doing? She'd come here to think, but her thoughts kept circling back to Damien, to the way he looked at her, to the rawness in his voice when he said losing you isn't an option, to the realization that somewhere between the note on the windshield and this moment, everything had changed. She wasn't just his assistant anymore. Maybe she never had been. A car engine purred behind her. Ava turned, expecting Eli, but the vehicle pulling up to the curb wasn't his. It was sleek and black and terrifyingly familiar. Declan Hayes stepped out, his smile sharp in the streetlight. "Ava, how fortuitous." Ava's blood turned to ice. She glanced toward Eli's car, but 2 other vehicles had boxed it in, men emerging to block his path. "No, no, no, don't scream," Declan said pleasantly, stepping closer. "That would be unwise. My men are very efficient, and I'd hate for Eli to get hurt trying to play hero." "What do you want?" "I think you know." Declan's hand closed around her arm, gentle but unyielding. "You should have stayed in Damien's cage, little bird. Out here, you're far too vulnerable." Ava tried to pull away, but his grip tightened. Across the street, Eli shouted something, but Declan's men were already moving, containing the threat. "Why are you doing this?" Ava's voice shook. "Because Damien needs to learn that his control has limits." Declan guided her toward the car, his voice conversational, despite the violence of the action. "And you, sweet Ava, are the perfect lesson. He cares about you, genuinely cares, which is rare for him. That makes you valuable, to him, to me. He'll come for me. I'm counting on it." Declan opened the car door, his smile never wavering. "That's when the real game begins." Ava looked back one last time, at Eli fighting to reach her, at the tower's lights gleaming in the distance, at the world she was being torn from. Then Declan pushed her into the car, and the door closed like a tomb. The warehouse smelled of rust and river water. Ava sat in a metal chair, her wrists zip-tied in front of her, trying to keep her breathing steady. Declan had brought her here an hour ago, or maybe longer. Time felt slippery in the windowless space, and left her with 2 guards who watched in silence. "Don't panic, Damien will come," he promised. But what if he didn't? What if Declan's trap worked, and Damien? The door crashed open. Declan strode in, his earlier pleasantness replaced by something colder. He pulled up a chair, sitting backward on it, arms crossed over the back. Let's have a chat, Ava, just you and me. I don't have anything to say to you. I think you do. Declan tilted his head, studying her. Do you know what Damien Rourke really is? What he's done to build his empire? I know enough. Do you? Declan's voice dropped, intimate and poisonous. He's killed people, Ava, not in clean ways, not in self-defense. He's made men disappear, destroyed families, built his fortune on blood and fear. He leaned closer. And you think he's your hero? Your protector? Ava's stomach churned, but she met his gaze. I think you're trying to scare me, and I think you're using fear because you know Damien is better than you. Declan's smile froze. Better? He has lines he won't cross. You don't. Ava's voice steadied. That's why you took me, because you can't beat him any other way. For a moment, something dangerous flickered in Declan's eyes. Then he laughed, a sound without humor. You're either very brave or very stupid. I haven't decided which. Maybe both. Maybe. Declan stood, the chair scraping against concrete. Let's see how brave you feel when Damien walks into my trap. He left without another word, locking the door behind him. Ava sat in the silence, her heart hammering. She'd meant what she said. Damien had lines, morals, something human beneath the power. She'd seen it in the way he looked at her, in the way he'd said please. But Declan was right about one thing. She didn't know everything about Damien's past, about what he'd done to survive in this world. Does it matter? The question surprised her, because the answer, the honest answer, was no. She'd seen who Damien was now, how he treated her, how he carried responsibility, how he'd rather lock her away safely than risk her coming to harm. That was the man she knew. That was the man she... The thought died as gunfire erupted somewhere above. Damien Rourke moved through the warehouse like a storm given human form. He'd brought 6 men. Eli was at his side, weapon drawn, moving with lethal precision through Declan's guards. But Damien barely needed them. He fought with a kind of controlled fury that made even his own people keep their distance. Every man who stood between him and Ava fell. Where is she? Damien's voice cut through the chaos as he cornered one of Declan's lieutenants. The man pointed toward the back. Storage room, but Declan's waiting. Damien didn't stay to hear the rest. He moved, Eli covering his back, until they reached a heavy metal door. He kicked it open. Ava looked up from the chair, eyes wide and tear-streaked, but alive, whole. The relief that crashed through Damien was almost painful. Damien, are you hurt? He crossed to her in 3 strides, dropping to his knees to cut the zip ties with a knife. His hands were gentle despite their trembling. No, I'm okay. I'm good. He pulled her into his arms, briefly, fiercely. Then he stood, putting himself between her and the door. Eli, get her out. What about you? Ava asked. I'm finishing this. Damien, no, go. His voice was steel. Now. But before Eli could move, Declan appeared in the doorway, gun raised. How touching, Declan said, his earlier charm completely gone. The great Damien Rourke, on his knees for a girl. Let her go. Damien's voice was eerily calm. This is between us. Everything is between us now. Declan's gun swung toward Ava. That's what you don't understand. You brought her into this world. You made her matter. Now she's fair game. She's innocent. Damien stepped sideways, blocking Ava from the gun's trajectory. Hurting her doesn't hurt me. It just proves you're weak. Weak? Declan's laugh was wild. You're the one who fell for a girl who leaves apology notes on cars. You're the one who let his guard down. And you're the one who thinks leverage is the same as power. Damien's voice dropped. Dangerous. You don't have the courage to face me directly, so you hide behind her. That's not strength, Declan. That's desperation. Declan's finger tightened on the trigger. Everything slowed. Ava saw it happening, saw the decision in his eyes, saw Damien's body already moving to shield her. No! Ava threw herself forward, knocking into Damien just as the gun fired. The bullet caught Damien in the shoulder instead of the chest. He stumbled but stayed upright, his own weapon rising in one fluid motion. The shot was precise, clean. Declan's gun clattered to the floor as he grabbed his wounded arm, falling back. Eli's team poured through the door, securing Declan before he could move. But Ava only saw Damien, blood spreading across his shirt, his face pale but focused entirely on her. Why did you do that? His voice was raw, almost angry. Because you were going to die for me. Ava's hands shook as she pressed them against his wound, trying to stop the bleeding. And I couldn't. I can't lose you. Damien's good hand came up to cup her face. Ava, don't. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Don't tell me it was your job to protect me. Don't make this about duty or responsibility. Because it's not. Not anymore. No, Damien agreed quietly, his thumb brushing away her tears. It's not. Eli appeared at Damien's other side. We need to get you to a doctor. In a minute. Damien didn't break eye contact with Ava. I need to say something first. Damien, you're bleeding. In a minute, he repeated, more insistent. I was wrong. About keeping you locked away. About making choices for you. His voice was tight with pain, but clear with purpose. You're not a possession to protect. You're a person, and you deserve to make your own choices, even the dangerous ones. Ava's breath hitched. What are you saying? I'm saying this is your choice now. My world is dangerous. It's complicated. There are people like Declan who will always see you as leverage. Damien's gaze held hers, unflinching. If you want to walk away, I'll understand. I'll make sure you're safe, but I won't trap you anymore. And if I don't want to walk away? Something raw and hopeful flickered across Damien's face. Then you stay, not as my assistant, not as an obligation. His voice dropped to a whisper, as someone I can't imagine living without. Ava's heart clenched. She looked at this man, powerful and wounded, dangerous and honest, capable of both protecting and letting go. I choose you, she whispered, even with the danger, even with everything. I choose you. Damien's expression broke into something that looked like relief and joy and pain all at once. He pulled her close with his good arm, pressing his forehead against hers. Then let's get out of here, he murmured, together. 3 weeks later, the morning light filtered through the windows of Damien's penthouse, soft and golden. Ava stood at the counter making coffee, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. Damien was still recovering, his shoulder healing well according to the doctors, though he'd ignored their advice about rest more often than not. You're supposed to be in bed, Ava said without turning around. I got lonely. Damien's voice came from behind her, warm with something that sounded almost like contentment. Ava smiled, handing him a cup. Black, 7:30. Some things don't change. Some things do. He took the coffee, but didn't drink it. just stood there looking at her with an expression that still made her pulse quicken. Declan's organization has been dismantled. Marcus and Eli handled most of it. There won't be any more threats from that quarter. And the others? There are always others. Damien set the cup down, his good hand reaching for hers. But I've made it very clear that you're off limits. Anyone who even looks at you wrong will answer to me. Damien, I know. He smiled slightly. Your choice, your life, but that doesn't mean I won't make mine clear. Ava squeezed his hand. Fair enough. They stood in comfortable silence, morning light warming the space between them. It wasn't perfect. Damien's world would never be entirely safe. There would always be complications, dangers lurking at the edges. But there would also be this: coffee at dawn, quiet moments, the choice to stay. I've been thinking, Damien said carefully, about what comes next, for us. Ava's breath caught. Us. He stopped, as if the words were harder than facing down rivals with guns. I want you to know that this isn't temporary, what I feel. What we have, I want it to be real, permanent. It is real. I mean legally. Damien's thumb traced circles on her palm. Permanently. If that's something you'd want. Eventually. Ava's heart stuttered. Was he? Are you asking me to marry you? The words came out breathless. Not yet. Damien's smile was soft, vulnerable. But someday, when you're ready, when you're sure this is the life you want. I'm asking if you'd consider it, consider me. Ava looked at him, really looked at him, at the man who'd appeared because of a crumpled note, who'd offered her a job instead of a bill, who'd protected her, released her, respected her choices even when they terrified him, who'd taken a bullet meant for her and made it look like the most natural thing in the world. I've been sure since the warehouse, Ava said quietly, when I realized I'd rather be in danger with you than safe without you. That's not a very practical reason. Love rarely is. The word hung between them, love finally spoken aloud. Damien's eyes darkened with emotion. Say it again. I love you. Ava stepped closer, her hand rising to his uninjured shoulder. I love you, Damien Rourke, even with your world, even with the danger, even with everything. Ava. Her name on his lips sounded like a prayer. I love you. I don't say it easily. I don't say it often, but I need you to know you're the only good thing I've done in a very long time. That's not true. It is. Damien's hand cupped her face, gentle despite its strength. You made me remember that power without accountability is just tyranny. That protection without respect is just control. You made me want to be better. You already were better. I just helped you see it. Damien kissed her then, soft and careful, mindful of his healing shoulder, but unmistakable in its tenderness. When they broke apart, both were smiling. So, Ava said, voice slightly unsteady, what happens now? Now. Damien glanced toward the windows, toward the city waking up below. Now we figure out what normal looks like, for us. I still want to work at the bakery sometimes, just a few shifts. I like the routine. You can work wherever you want. Damien's smile widened. As long as Eli can install better security cameras. And I want to go back to school, finish my degree. I'll pay for it. I'll pay for it, Ava corrected gently. But you can help if you want. I want. Damien pulled her closer. I want everything with you. 2 months later, Riverside Bakery hosted a small gathering. Not a wedding, not yet, but something equally meaningful. a celebration of new beginnings, of choices honored and trust earned. Damien stood near the counter in dark slacks and a simple sweater, looking simultaneously out of place and perfectly content. Eli was there, along with Marcus and a few others from Damien's inner circle. Ava's friends from the bakery, Mrs. Chen, who'd watched the whole story unfold from her corner table and kept every secret. "I still can't believe it," one of Ava's coworkers whispered. "You and Damien Rourke." "Neither can I sometimes," Ava admitted. But she did believe it. In the quiet moments, in the way Damien looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching, in the way he'd restructured his entire life to make room for hers, in the way she'd found courage she didn't know she had. The story of how they met had become something of a legend. The dented car, the apologetic note, the mafia boss who chose accountability over anger. People said it was romantic. Ava thought it was something better. It was honest. "Speech," someone called, and the small crowd turned expectantly. Damien caught Ava's eye, raising an eyebrow. "Together?" She nodded. They stood at the center of the bakery, hands linked. "I'm not good at speeches," Damien began, his voice steady despite the audience. "But I'm good at recognizing when something changes your life. For me, that was a note on a windshield, written by someone who didn't have to be honest, but chose to be anyway." Ava's throat tightened. "This woman," Damien's hand squeezed hers, "taught me that power means nothing without integrity. That control isn't the same as care, that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is leave a note and face the consequences. And sometimes," Ava added softly, "the bravest thing is letting someone in, even when they come from a world you don't understand. Even when it's scary, even when every logical part of you says to run." "We chose not to run," Damien said, and that made all the difference. The room erupted in applause. Ava felt tears prick her eyes, not sad tears, but the kind that came from overwhelming gratitude, for second chances, for honest men who honored choices, for love that felt both inspirational and real. Mrs. Chen raised her coffee cup in a toast. "To accountability," she called. "To accountability," the room echoed. And Ava Collins, who'd once been so afraid of a dented car that her hands shook writing an apology, stood in a bakery full of love and light and thought, this is home." Later that night, Damien and Ava walked along the riverfront, the same area where the warehouse had stood, now transformed by new developments and string lights that turned the darkness warm. "Do you ever regret it?" Damien asked quietly. "Leaving that note?" Ava looked up at him, at the way the city lights caught in his eyes. "Every day," she said honestly, then smiled. "And not at all." "That doesn't make sense." "It does if you understand that the best things in life are also the scariest." She leaned into his side, and his arm came around her shoulders, protective but not confining. "I regret that I was scared. But I don't regret being honest, and I definitely don't regret where it led." "Where do you think it's leading?" Damien's voice held a note of curiosity. "Long term." "Somewhere good," Ava said. "Somewhere that feels like home." "Home." Damien tested the word as if tasting it. "I like that." They stopped at a bench overlooking the water. In the distance, the city hummed with life, motivational in its persistence, endlessly moving forward. Ava thought about how far she'd come. From a woman terrified of a parking lot scratch to someone strong enough to choose love in the middle of danger. "My mother would have liked you," she said suddenly. Damien glanced at her. "The one who taught you not to lie." "The same." Ava smiled sadly. "She always said that character is what you do when no one's watching. And you, even in your world, even with all the power you have, you chose to respect my choices, to let me go if I wanted. That's character." "I chose not to lose you," Damien corrected quietly. "There's a difference." "No." Ava turned to face him fully. "You chose to love me the right way, with respect, with reciprocity, with vulnerability. That's everything." Damien was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, a folded piece of paper, worn soft with handling. Ava's breath caught as she recognized it, her original note, the one she'd left on his windshield that rainy night. "You kept it." "I keep all the things that matter." Damien's voice was soft. "This changed my life, Ava. You changed my life." "Good changed or bad changed?" "The best change." He refolded the note carefully, tucking it back into his pocket. "The kind that makes you realize what you were missing." Ava's eyes burned with tears. "What were you missing?" "You." Damien pulled her close, his lips brushing her temple. "I just didn't know it until you appeared." They sat in comfortable silence as the river flowed past, carrying with it the old hurts and fears, leaving behind something stronger, something built on choice and trust and honest accountability. "Damien?" Ava whispered. Thank you for not being angry about your car." He laughed, a real laugh, warm and unguarded. "Best scratch I ever got." And as the city lights reflected off the water like scattered stars, Ava Collins understood something profound. Sometimes the mistakes we're most afraid of making become the doorways to the lives we were meant to live. She'd left a note on the wrong car and found exactly the right man. Sometimes accountability leads to unexpected places. Sometimes honesty opens doors we never knew existed. If this story touched your heart, subscribe and share it with someone who believes in second chances and real love. Because the best romances aren't about perfection. They're about two people who choose each other again and again, no matter what. Thank you for listening. Until next time, may your choices always lead you home.